Cool. Wait for everybody to pop in. I'm also gonna jazz with getting some cool lighting going on back here. Uh-huh. Right. I mean, it's, as much as I want to say it's you know, it it's a lot of regurgitation and it's a lot of the same stuff. And that's kind of like where I get turned off on that whole marketing side of things. Is I'm not somebody who's just like that. I can sit there and focus on data points and be very consistent and monitoring things all day. It's kind of like day trading. Like I also suck at day trading, but I would imagine it's very similar in those regards.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we are. All right, so we've got people filtering in now. We did have some comments. I'm going to look at those first and see. Some people had some things that we wanted to that they wanted us to specifically talk about. So let me see what we got going there. Oh no, I did see some comments. Hey, everybody that's joining us right now. If you've got any questions for us, go ahead and drop them in the comments, and we're going to address those in real time. Michelle's in the middle of very explosive Q4, and so I'm not going to share specific numbers, but where we're talking about doing 50,000 in your first 30 days, I think you've well surpassed that, possibly even this week. So that's awesome, and hopefully we can help give all of our other merchants some insights on how they might can scale their own ads. I'm not seeing any questions there yet. Michelle, do you want to kind of go over? We were just talking about before we hopped on the call how you're constantly having to monitor your TikTok. You've got your side monitor up, and
Yep.
you're constantly glancing at that. And I asked you, TikTok, Facebook has kind of set it up and let it go, and you didn't have to monitor it that much. But you are having to do that with TikTok. Why are you having to do that with TikTok, but not necessarily Facebook?
So with TikTok, it works very rapidly. So where with Facebook, you really have to take the time to narrow in on your target market, and honestly, I haven't done a whole lot of Facebook ads. I do have them running and I do get sales from them, but
Right.
it's near the volume or the type of scaling that I'm doing with TikTok. And I didn't do Facebook ads back before the update, so I'm not quite sure exactly how they were running back then. But yeah, with my Facebook ads, I don't really touch them a lot. I check them periodically, but I'm not
Right.
having to constantly monitor them because they're not spending the same way. Where with TikTok, it spends, depending on how I'm scaling, what optimization I'm using, what type of budget I'm running. There's so many different ways that you can run ads, but certain times it will spend very quickly,
Right.
which can be highly effective, but it also requires your attention. It's not something you want to let run on its
Right.
own, or you quickly overspend.
So is that just because TikTok is because it's such an active platform itself, that once something starts to get traction, TikTok's going to promote it, and just because of how active of a platform it is, it's blowing wind on the fire, and so it is much more aggressive on your ad spend, and possibly not in a good way. I mean, you might see a ton of volume come in that is just very expensive for some reason.
Not necessarily that. It's more of like with TikTok, you can push things to start working really well. So in the morning, you start with like a lower budget, and you're, kind of, well, in the beginning, you're more testing, and then you really figure out how your account runs, and then you're able to, scale it. But even when you're scaling, intensely, like I am right now, I'm still pushing everything back to a lower budget at midnight, so that in the morning, starting with a lower spend. But then throughout the day, when things are working, you're bumping the budget, you're duplicating ads, and that's when, right now I have, close to 100, I think, or maybe even more. I don't even know at this point how many ads I actually have running actively. But
and those are ad sets, right?
Like yeah. So, I have several campaigns, and then within those campaigns, I have several different ad groups, and then within those ad groups, I have multiple ads. So it's just to monitor. If you don't know what you're doing, it's really not that difficult. It's just a matter of, keeping an eye on it, because there's certain parameters that I have that just from, doing it as long as I have and knowing how my account operates, there's certain metrics that I watch closely. So, within a couple dollars, I'll know if I'm going to kill an ad. $5, $6 to $8, 10, 15. Like, I have certain metrics that I look for, and I will shut them off. Now, I do have rules that I have that I can set up to monitor my account if I need to run somewhere.
Right.
But when I'm scaling like this, I turn those off, and I just completely manually run them.
So when you talk about these parameters, obviously, that's kind of some of your bread and butter in how you're being successful. But can you give some like vague examples of what parameters people might be looking out for? I mean, just for the layman who's listening to us, like when you say you've got these certain parameters, like that's, what's something tangible that we can actually give them in relation to that?
A good metric to set parameters for, really, there's two. The first one is going to be just to put a cap on your budget on one specific ad group. So, for example, if I'm turning, just like a general rule on, it's going to be that ad group is not going to spend more than $15 without a sale.
Okay.
And then the second one would be, essentially my CPA. I don't want my CPA on an ad group, regardless of how many sales it's getting, to drop below a certain number. And that's going to be determined, based on your product, what your profit margin is, things like that.
Right.
But those are the general rules that I'll set in place. When you have scaling, though, another thing is the data transfer. So that's why I shut them off completely when I'm scaling aggressively, because although an ad group might hit $15, for example, it's not going to recognize if I have several add to cart, or if I've had sales that I know are pending the data transfer, which typically around 10, 15 minutes for everything to transfer over. So I don't want TikTok, because of my rules, to start shutting off working ads before the data will transfer over. Right.
So if you know that you're coming up on peak hour, or where you get the most of your sales, let's say you get most of your sales between like 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. if that's the bulk of your sales volume. If at 1 p.m. it's not performing as well as you would want it to, that's where you're saying you would be personally monitoring that, so that TikTok doesn't close it off, because that as soon as peak hour comes, you're gonna that all of those parameters that were exceeding the TikTok limit are gonna drop.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it depends on the day and how my account's performing, what I'm running, things like that. But like today, I mean, I've been getting sales since midnight. So, I went to bed.
I was looking at your account this like thing. I went to bed at, or I refreshed at like 12:30 a.m. and there was like 9 orders. I was like, what the hell? Like, it's like normally anytime I refresh the page, I expect across the whole platform for, sales to just be down across the board, but I didn't really see a decrease in your sales rate at all, which is surprising to me, honestly, because, who in the United States, who's buying at midnight, but I'll take it.
That's because of the time zone difference. So, I'm on the East Coast, but
Yeah, so
then
it's 8 o'clock somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that contributes to a lot of the sales that I get, earlier in the morning, like early morning hours. But I typically try to use day parting so that, I'm not, worried about my ads when,
Right.
I'm trying to get some sleep. But, from first thing this morning, I woke up and I couldn't even hop in the shower before I'm, making sure that I'm, checking all my ads
Right.
and, monitoring it.
So when you as you're pushing your ads and you're learning things like you were talking about, specific days, do specific things at specific times. Do you have a journal that you're just making all these notes to self? I mean, how do you take all of these observations and construct them into action when you're running your ads?
Honestly, it's just a lot of trial and error. As you go, you kind of figure it out. It's not really a set formula because, every month is going to be a different time of year. Different things are trending, different things, certain times of the month, you'll typically see a peak in sales because, when everybody's rent and mortgages are due, usually you won't see as many sales, especially on certain days of the week. But that's not always going to be the case because, different times of year, people are going to be buying even more. So for example, December, next month, where normally we would see a slowdown in the first week of the month, I am expecting a ramp up because everybody do last minute shopping, for anything they're trying to order online to arrive in time for Christmas. So it just kind of have to use common sense, but also, once you have data, so that's what I'll use a lot of times for me, is I'll just go back and look at my data, specific days and, times and things like that to try to, make an educated gauge on how I'm going to react.
Right. Well, and you'd also mentioned that, you're relative to your time zone, and you're on the East Coast, that, at midnight for you, it's 8 p.m. for people out in California. And I just bring that up to say that, like, when you're analyzing the data, or when you're thinking about your customer, stop thinking about yourself. Stop thinking about, like, oh, well, I eat dinner at this time, so I wouldn't be ordering at 7:30 p.m. because that's when I'm doing dishes. Like, or, just like get out of your own mind and think from a macro scale, because you might have your own tendencies, but that has absolutely nothing to do with the market.
1,000%. And that's why one of the things I learned in, the program I took is data over everything. When I'm initially launching something, I'm going to keep it broad. I'm going to, essentially buy data in the beginning. When I'm first testing ads, I'm not expecting sales. I mean, it's great, when you do get sales, but that's not the goal of your initial ads that you're running. You're buying data. You're figuring out your target market so you can make adjustments and narrow that down. You're figuring out what the time of day that people are spending so that way you can adjust your day parting. But yeah, you definitely in the beginning want to keep it more general and more broad, and then make adjustments based on the data, not based on emotions.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to hit on, I've got some of the questions that were popping up. First, from the comments from earlier. So somebody was asking about graphics for sellers. We do have a folder of transparent images for all colors. If you reach out to us in the MEM app, I can send you the link to that. And let me see, I think there was one more comment. So somebody had asked, I'm interested in how she makes the slideshow ads. Does she do it live in the TikTok app, or does she upload, or does she just upload to Ads Manager? how many pictures, etc. Just as many details as possible.
Yeah, so I use Canva to create all of my ads. It's like $12.99 a month for the pro account, and it is well worth it. But I do everything in there. And then as far as, how I'm structuring my ads, I'm doing research and I'm looking, at the competitors, whether that, if I'm creating a TikTok ad, I'm looking at TikTok and searching, something similar. And then I'm structuring my ad, similar to what's working, what's trending. So I'm not going to, find something like I used to do in the beginning when I started doing this. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. I love that song. And I like, whatever.
Right.
You don't want to do that. You want to look at, what's working. So if it has, under 1,000 clicks, I'm not even going to open it. But if it has, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of hits on that ad, then that's a working ad. Somebody's not going to keep paying to have an ad out there that long if it's not something that's working. So that's the type of ad that I'm going to look at.
Absolutely. And so we've also got somebody that's asking, generic question for the newbies. How do we get our name out there, ads, where to put them? That is a very generic question and very hard to answer, honestly. Ultimately, there's, especially on Shopify, there's tens of thousands of new Shopify websites that are popping up like every day, if not every day, at least every week. So how do you make a name for yourself? Especially if we're going into a recession, like, your customer support is going to be extremely massive. Building relationships with your customers is going to be extremely important. Once you do get customers, hitting them with those email lists and, hey, I'm starting my own business. Like, the more personal that you are with your customers, ultimately you are trying to convince somebody of taking money out of their pocket and putting it in your pocket. And so the more that they like you, the more that they're, the more likely that they are to buy products from your website. So, that's not specific to Metal Art. That's not specific to my software. That's not specific to anything that we're doing. That's just general rule of thumb. When you're starting out there, every customer that you get needs to be the most important customer of your day. And you need to make them feel special and wanted. So that's how I would personally answer that one.
Yeah. And honestly, it starts with, how you're getting their attention, right? I mean, they're not even going to know what your, customer service is until they get to your store. Mm-hmm. Once they're there, customer service is essential, and you're definitely not going to be able to, have especially repeat customers if you're not delivering amazing customer service. So I definitely focus on customer service a lot. Right. But from the very beginning, you want to have something that's going to catch their attention, pull at their emotions. Yep. You can at least get them to your store, and then from there, you also want to make sure that you have a good store, something that is, aesthetically pleasing, but more than that, functionability. You want to make sure that it's easy, clean, they can click through and order something without, any frustration, because if they're having to wait for something to load, or if they're, having to, click through a bunch of pages to get to something, they're going to be off your store, faster.
Well, I also want to add on to that, like, that does not mean that you need to do a bunch of crazy stuff to your theme. Actually, it's probably more the opposite. Stop doing so much to your theme. Stop adding in a bunch of apps and widgets. And every time I go onto this one website, I get a roulette wheel that pops up, and I close out of that. And it's like, hey, do you want to be on an email list? I'm like, no, like, I have to exit out of like 5 things. And the whole page loads so slowly because people are like, I have to use all of these tools to get conversions, when in reality, some of that's probably true. But when you're adding 20 apps to your website, that then causes your website to load slow. Now your customer's having a worse experience. And if you just used a default Dawn theme that we've seen is obviously working really well. So, to her point, make sure that the experience is frictionless, but don't think that means that you have to spend 100 hours on building out your website. It's probably the opposite. Like, if you're spending more than 10 hours, you might be doing too much. Well, maybe not 10, maybe 20, but
it's stupid simple. And when you are downloading apps, make sure that those apps are not going to slow your site down, and don't download apps that are unnecessary. Like you said, or apps you have, or, if you're using apps that are not good apps, they're going to make the overall experience worse for your customer, and then you'll lose sales.
Absolutely. And that actually brings up, I'm going to share, I'm going to share a Chrome tab real quick, GT Metrics. So this is a website that I use. It's GT Metrics. You type in your website and test it, and it will give you a breakdown of all of the performance of your website and what is slowing your website down and whatnot. So did you see that just now when I did the screen share? Did it pull up the GT Metrics page live?
I didn't see it.
No. Okay, let me do this. Let me try that.
Flash.
Do solo. Bam. GT Metrics. So yeah, you type in your website, type in your product page, and it will give you a breakdown of exactly what's happening on your website, the load speed, the how Google ranks your page score, which does affect your SEO and whatnot. So I just wanted to share that real quick so that people know what kind of tools are out there. And that's also a free tool. So we did have somebody that had asked about your ROAS on TikTok. I'm sure you probably don't want to divulge too much information, but what ROAS would you consider bad? I know that's a pretty dynamic question, but.
Well, yeah, it definitely depends, on, many different factors, but just kind of a general rule of thumb is you don't want to go below 2.5. Now, in the beginning, when you're testing and, you're also collecting data, so I'm willing to spend a little bit more in the beginning because I am collecting data, and I'd rather collect it, quickly than, wait, and then, it just takes longer to get to, the end goal.
On that data phase, I mean, are you willing to risk, like when you first started and you first had your first scaling ad, did you risk $1,000 of pure loss to get that data, or was it like $250 of pure loss over the course of $1,000 because you got some revenue coming in off of that and whatnot?
So when I first started doing this, I really was doing it wrong. I was spending way more than I needed to spend.
But we're talking hundreds, thousands. I'm just setting the expectations for everybody that's watching that, I just lost $20 today. You need to put on your big boy pants because like $20 is not a loss.
It was a good day, in the beginning, 100, 200, 300. But overall, thousands. But once I, really learned how to read my data, analyze my data, and not make decisions based on emotions, that's when it was really a game changer for me. Because my first month that I started scaling, I think it was just under 50,000. It was less than a month. It wasn't a full month of scaling, but it was just under 50,000.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any profit. In fact, there was a loss.
Right.
Then the next month, I started really focusing on analyzing my data and reducing my expenses so that I could increase my net revenue. And then that's when I started, seeing a major difference. When I took my emotions out of it and stopped making decisions based on, what I thought was going to happen, and actually looked at the data. And at that point, of course, it comes with experience too, right? You have to be in there and doing it real time and understanding everyone's account's going to perform differently also. So when you understand, how your account is running and what metrics are, either potentially going to bring you a sale, or what ones are like, heck no, that's not even worth pursuing, just shut it off. That's when I to really start being profitable.
But so, that 50,000, your first month kind of doing it, I think it was actually like close to like 24 days, technically speaking. But that, you say that it was essentially break even, but that also brings up another point that loss lead is a viable strategy where you're actually willing to lose money to acquire the customer. And I mean, this isn't coming from me. I'm just regurgitating what I've heard my whole life, is that you can actually still have a viable business on the first sale. You're going to lose money on that customer, but then you're going to hit them with your email campaign. And so that 50,000 that you essentially broke even, maybe lost a little bit on, over the next 6 months, you might, with your email list, you might be able to hit them for $10,000-$15,000 worth of revenue. That's just, more or less pure profit. You're not paying Facebook for those conversions.
And honestly, times where I have, an ad that is not a sales, but I'm getting tons of checkouts.
Hey, Michelle, hold on just 1 second. We're cutting out really bad. Might be a connection thing.
Can you hear me now?
That's way better. Way better.
Okay. Sorry. No, all that to say, when I'm running ads and I have something that's, it's not bringing me conversions, but I'm getting tons and tons of add to carts and initiating checkouts, I will let that spend, and I will end up, essentially taking a loss on that for the day. I mean, overall my net will be profitable, but it will be, less than what it would be if I was, following, the data,
Right.
exactly. But what I do is, then I can look at the overall for the month at the end of the month, because then Flavio is going to kick in. And like you said, I'm going to use my email and SMS campaigns, and I'm going to convert those sales. And even if it's not the same month, look, right now we have Black Friday, Cyber Monday, then Valentine's Day. So having that customer base, you're able to then hit them, like you said, with those campaigns.
So even if an ad is breaking even. Sorry, now I'm getting like reverb. Oh, is that you had a microphone in because the reverb?
Yeah, I have an issue with my my speaker. Let me try turning it back on and see if it's working now.
Let me get you a podcast.
Huh?
So I'm gonna mail you a podcast mic here today. You gotta hop on Amazon.
You know what? Yeah, send me the link to what I need to buy, because I need to get a new one. This thing is like, it's like a little portable thing.
I'll send you one. That's my token of appreciation. So, in talking with the going back on track of, you might be pushing an ad campaign that you're break even, possibly even losing 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever. You would still scale that ad. You would still scale that as long as your losses don't increase as you scale. If I'm not mistaken, because at the end of the month, if you had killed those campaigns, then, you still lost 1%, 2% on 50 orders or on 1,000 orders. And having the data on that 1,000 orders is important enough for you to keep scaling that ad up. That's more or less what I took from that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm, just
because I think that's something that people don't really like. People are like, oh, well, I'm not making bukus of money on this. And in all reality, like, I wouldn't expect, if I was to start a website today, I wouldn't expect to be profitable on it for probably 2 or 3 months. And that's 1 month of really heavy losses, 1 month of breaking even. Then that third month is hopefully recouping on my losses and whatnot. Now I understand, now I've got systems in place. But if you're starting to get into TikTok today, or if you're starting to get into TikTok, this week, you might get lucky with some Black Friday deals, and with the just seasonality of it, but it's going to be extremely short-lived, and it's not going to build a brand. And I really want to help people build brands more than, we call them holiday surfers, people that will like just uninstall the app, kick off their website in January, and then we don't see them again until September. And then they come in and they just try to ride the wave. I'm like, I understand the strategy, and that's fine for whoever's doing it, but you're really losing a lot of opportunity in building the brand itself. And in times when the economy is rough, if you don't have the brand, it's going to be really hard to make things convert if you're not, the customer experience side of things. If you're not building the relationships with people, you can't just pump and dump every Christmas.
Yeah. And honestly, that's why, especially right now, it's unfortunate, but there are a lot of scammers out there.
Yes.
And they prey on TikTok and Facebook ads. And there's a lot of people who've been burned by them. And so I get a lot of customers who will reach out and they're just trying to verify that, my store is real.
That you're a real person in the United States that's selling a real product.
Yep. So it's important that you have, your website set up with all of your information, a phone number, an email, an address. I wouldn't suggest using your personal home address. Use like you can get addresses that are like PO boxes that don't say PO box. There's virtual addresses that you can get that you can pick your mail up locally. But anyway, that's all important. But also reviews. I actually ended up putting a lot of focus on getting reviews because that also helps to legitimize my store. And now I rarely get people who reach out to me because I actually have tons and tons of current reviews that are posted, on my page. And a lot of them also include a picture of their product as well. So that has really helped, I think, with, overall building the brand for the store.
And that kind of got me thinking, like, if and I mean, this might be just a dumb idea, but like, if you were to have videos of like, if a certain customer was willing to like kind of do like what you and I are doing right now, and just like a short little 30-second thing, like, hey, I just want to say thanks for buying the product. And she's like, oh my God, I love this so much. Like, this is great. And like, if you just had a couple of those on you, because like I said, I mean, I really feel like the more that you're personal with this, I think you're going to see so much more success. There's too many websites out there that, especially, whether you're selling metal art, jewelry, whatever it is, like there's so many cookie cutter websites out there that nothing stands out. And, sure, I like to go and, thinking from my perspective, I would rather just go on a website and buy a thing and get out of there. But thinking of like my grandmother, my mother, like thinking of other people in my life, they'll be like, oh, I'm helping this person's small business. It's like they're buying from the boutique down the street. And if you don't have any kind of personality on your website, then you're just a cold kind of, cubicle inside of Walmart, more or less. So obviously that's not necessary for what you're doing. But I'm speaking to people who maybe aren't going to go so hard on TikTok and are trying to do more of an organic approach, or people that aren't trying to build the brand, period. So let me see. I've got a couple more questions, and I know you're multitasking over there. I appreciate you being a trooper and sticking through. So let me see if we got more questions. Do want to circle back on the coaching situation. So Michelle, you and I were talking about this earlier. For everybody that's out there, we want to do this and we're trying to do this, but Michelle, I know you're slammed. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation. Like she's I wouldn't even say luckily, like there's a lot of skill that goes into what you've done so far, but you're having a lot of luck, and that's requiring a lot of your attention, and we don't want to pull away from that. So you and I are still converging on when we can get the coaching situation together and what that actually needs to look like for the merchants. Because you're also part of the Ecom Fam group. And so, we might possibly do some kind of tandem situation to where they're helping take off some of that load. But, from my understanding, even out of that group, you're the only one that's scaling real numbers with these products. So I'm sure a lot of people would want very specific information from you specifically. We just need to figure out what that looks like. And we hope to have an update to everybody, hopefully by Monday. I think would be, let us get through this Black Friday and kind of, wrap our heads around things. Does that sound probably accurate?
Yeah. No, this week has been kind of a whirlwind, and I actually took off the week from coaching through the program this week, and thank God,
Yeah, right.
because it's definitely been a very busy week. And normally, it's not as crazy, but thankfully it has been. Yesterday was almost 11,000
revenue.
Revenue, yeah. Monday was it was, I think, just over 6,000, maybe. Now I need to look at my numbers.
Pretty sharp exponential curve is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, so I'm expecting today to be well over 10, because I'm getting close to 4,000, and it's 2 o'clock. So
and peak hours in the afternoon, right?
Yeah, and then of course we have Black Friday on Friday, and then Cyber Monday. So so expecting to have a really good week.
Potentially, from my experience with Q4s in the past, this is in e-commerce at least, this is my 6th year of doing metal art in Q4 and whatnot. And I mean, it's the same for everything, but speaking to what I know, like, I would think it would be pretty reasonable for you to have $100,000 week this week between Monday and Sunday. Yeah. So that'll be pretty exciting for us all to see. And obviously we're rooting for you. We just opened up the second shift for cutting is opening up this weekend to help take over the increased volume from all of our merchants. There's been a lot of merchants who have had a lot of success, and I'm really happy to see that. Obviously, if anybody does have any questions, hit us in the support widget. I'm trying to, even over this weekend, make sure that I'm spending at least 3 times a day checking in on the support widget. One sale launched now. One sale. I got one sale in 1 month being launched now. Yeah, there's a lot of I think they're referring to the all the hundreds of ad campaigns that you've got. But just on that one product. There's somebody that commented about all the how they have one sale in 1 month being launched now. I think for one sign, I think they're referring to one ad campaign or one sale campaign that they're trying to do. But this talk right now really helps. So I'm glad.
Yeah, and just to touch on that really quick, I'll just make a quick comment, and this is a very high level overview. But in TikTok, it's very content driven. So if you think you're going to launch one ad and you're going to keep, even if you get a sale or two and you're going to keep launching the same ad, it's not going to work. You actually have to be actively creating new content. And there's, lots of little things that you can do to use the same working ad and just make it a little bit different. But I'm creating and launching new ads in TikTok every single day. And it's so second nature to me now that I can create a new ad in like 2 seconds and boom, upload a new one onto there. But you do need to be constantly creating new ads. You can't just keep running the same thing and keep expecting to get results, because like I said, it's a very content driven platform.
Right. No, I mean, I'll talk to you offline about what you're doing there in Canva, because I might be able to help with some automation there. Kind of like if you remember what I did with Adobe in the past. I don't know if that's necessary, but more than happy to help you in those regards. So again, just for the sake of being consistent, even though we're not launching the coaching yet, I'm still going to post the link in the comments of this video, and I'll probably do a fresh post in the group for that. Just know that we're not we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And so we're building up that list now. We're going to vet everybody over the next couple of weeks. But realistically, it's going to be a late December, early January for us to actually start providing value to anybody that needs it in that regard. Michelle, does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good deal. Michelle, I appreciate your time as always. I'm going to hop on Amazon right now and get you that podcast mic, and we'll we'll keep it kicking from there. So everybody, thank you for joining, and we're going to try to do this possibly even next week.
Awesome. So nice to see you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.